The whole world ended up forgetting Peter Parker. But that was never what Peter wanted. He never asked to be erased from everyone's memory. He only wanted a normal life. But everything changed when Mysterio exposed his identity to the world and revealed that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. After framing Peter for the drone attack in London, Mysterio turned the world against him overnight. People everywhere now believed Peter was dangerous and responsible for the chaos. Angry crowds surrounded Peter and MJ from every side, while reporters chased them non-stop. With no way out, Peter had no choice but to swing them both to safety. He rushed MJ back to his apartment, where Happy Hogan was already there. Happy awkwardly told Peter that he and May Parker had broken up. When Peter asked what happened, May explained that Happy never really opened up or spoke honestly about his feelings. Before they could talk any further, officers from the Department of Damage Control suddenly stormed in and took Peter into custody. They accused him of ordering the drone strike on London. Peter's friends and Aunt May were also taken in for questioning. But in the end, they could not prove anything, because the attack had been carried out using Stark Industries drones. Even after that, many people still believed Peter was guilty. Some even attacked his apartment, forcing Peter and May to move in with Happy for safety. The next day, Peter returned to Midtown School with MJ and Ned Leeds, but students treated them like a public spectacle. Cameras were everywhere, and people would not leave them alone. Trying to escape the chaos, the three friends went up to the rooftop. There they decided they would all apply to Massachusetts Institute of Technology together and start a new future side by side, so they submitted their applications with hope in their hearts. But because of the controversy surrounding Peter, none of them got accepted into MIT. In fact, no other college accepted them either. All three were devastated. Peter felt especially guilty. To make him feel better, Ned and MJ tore up the rejection letter and told him they had no regrets. But Peter knew the truth. They had lost their future because of him, even though they had done nothing wrong. That was when he remembered Dr. Strange. Maybe he was the only one who could fix this. So Peter went to the New York Sanctum and met Dr. Strange. He explained that ever since Mysterio exposed him, his entire life had been ruined. He asked if there was any way to make people forget it ever happened. Strange replied that they had only tampered with space and time before in order to save countless lives, but now Peter wanted to use magic because his personal life had become difficult. Peter quickly told him this was not just about him. Innocent people were suffering, and Ned and MJ's future was being destroyed simply because they knew him. Strange felt sorry for Peter, but said he could not help because he no longer had the time stone. Peter sadly apologized for wasting his time and started to leave, but then Wong casually mentioned that Strange was actually very good at making people forget things. Hearing that, Strange suddenly got an idea. He told Peter about the Rune of Kofkal, a spell that could erase memories. It would not reverse time, but it would make the whole world forget that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. Wong immediately warned them that the spell was dangerous. Strange replied that they had used it before many times, and Peter had already suffered enough. He believed they should help him. Wong reluctantly agreed, but before leaving, he warned Strange that if anything went wrong, he would not be there to save him. Strange then brought Peter down into the basement chamber and began casting the spell. He told Peter that soon the entire world would forget Peter Parker was Spider-Man, but Peter suddenly panicked and asked if some people could still remember. Strange warned him that the spell did not work that way, and changing it in the middle was extremely risky. Still, Peter kept begging, so Strange agreed to adjust it. Now everyone would forget, except MJ. But seconds later, Peter remembered Ned and asked Strange to include him too. Already irritated, Strange changed the spell again and said this would be the last time. Now only Ned and MJ would remember. Then Peter suddenly remembered Happy and Aunt May and asked Strange to spare them as well. At that moment, Strange lost his patience. He had already made too many changes because of Peter's non-stop requests. The spell suddenly became unstable and burst out with dangerous energy. Somehow, Strange managed to contain it at the last second and sealed the broken spell inside a magical crystal. Peter asked Dr. Strange if the spell had worked and if everyone had forgotten that he was Spider-Man. Strange told him nothing had happened. Because Peter kept changing the spell again and again, Strange had lost control of it and was forced to shut everything down. He warned Peter that if he had not stopped it in time, the consequences could have been unimaginable. Peter immediately apologized. Strange then told him it was unfortunate that his friends did not get into Massachusetts Institute of Technology because of him, but if he had already spoken to MIT and they still refused, then there was nothing else he could do. Peter looked confused and asked, "Wait, you mean I should have called MIT first?" Strange stared at him in disbelief. He could not believe Peter never even tried talking to them before showing up, asking to erase the memory of the entire world. Frustrated, Strange threw Peter out of the sanctum. Peter then called Flash Thompson, since Flash had been accepted into MIT. He asked where the MIT celebration party was happening. Flash suspiciously asked why he wanted to know. Peter explained that he needed to talk to the MIT admissions head, so Ned and MJ might still have a chance. Flash told him the admissions head was a woman, and she had already left for the airport. Peter rushed there immediately, and soon spotted her car stuck in traffic on the bridge. He quickly approached her and begged for another chance. He asked her not to punish his friends for something they had nothing to do with. But before she could answer, everything suddenly changed. Out of nowhere, Dr. Octopus arrived. Using his 4 deadly mechanical arms, he began attacking everyone around him. People screamed and ran in every direction. The MIT official became trapped inside her car as chaos exploded across the bridge. Peter had no idea who this man was or why he was attacking, but Dr. Octopus immediately targeted Spider-Man. A massive fight broke out between the two, but in the middle of it, the woman's car began falling off the bridge. Peter quickly broke free from Octavius and saved the car just in time, using his webs to hold it suspended safely against the bridge. But Dr. Octopus attacked again and ripped off a piece of Peter's iron spider armor. The nanotechnology attached itself to Octavius's tentacles, and Peter's mask peeled back, revealing his face. Dr. Octopus froze in shock. This Peter Parker was not the one he knew. In that same moment, Peter realized the nanotech had linked the tentacles to his suit. He suddenly gained control over them. Using Octavius's own arms against him, Peter lifted the trapped MIT official back to safety and restrained Dr. Octopus with his own tentacles. Peter then helped the MIT officer out of her car. Amazed by what she had just seen, she told him he was a true hero and promised to personally reconsider the applications for him and his friends. Peter was overjoyed. He then turned to Dr. Octopus and demanded to know who he was. But before he could get an answer, Green Goblin suddenly appeared and launched a pumpkin bomb toward them. Before the blast could hit, Doctor Strange used magic and instantly pulled Peter and Dr. Octopus back into the Sanctum basement. There, he locked Octavius inside a magical prison cell. Strange then explained that because of the spell Peter had corrupted, people from other universes had been pulled into their world, specifically people who knew that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. Peter was stunned. The multiverse was real. He asked Strange how that was possible when the spell had been stopped halfway through. Strange said he had tried to contain it, but even then, some visitors from other universes had still slipped through. When he sensed creatures from another reality entering their world, he tracked one down, a terrifying giant lizard who was actually Kurt Connors. Strange then told Peter he had no idea how many more dangerous beings from other universes might have arrived. That was why he needed Peter to capture all of them and lock them inside magical cells, while he searched for a way to send them back. Peter nervously replied that if MIT saw him fighting monsters all over the city, they might cancel his friend's admissions again. Strange ignored the complaint, took Peter's web shooting device, and enchanted it. Now, whenever Peter trapped one of the invaders, they would be sent directly into a magical prison cell. Peter was impressed. He admitted that all of this chaos was his fault and promised he would fix everything. But he said he needed help, so he called Ned Leeds and MJ to the Sanctum. When the three of them went down into the basement, Peter apologized for everything. MJ told him she was not mad at him, but next time, if he ever planned to make a decision that could put the entire world in danger, he should at least ask them first so they could help him. Peter quietly realized she was right. After that, all of them began searching social media for the rest of the monsters. Ned Leeds discovered reports of major chaos happening outside the city, where people claimed they had seen another creature. Peter immediately assumed it had to be Green Goblin, the same enemy he had seen on the bridge. But Dr. Octopus told him that was impossible because Norman Osborn had died years ago. Peter ignored him and focused on getting ready to leave. Because of all the recent controversy, people had thrown things at him and ruined his suit. He tried cleaning it, but nothing worked. So with no other option, Peter turned the suit inside out and wore it backwards before heading out. When Peter arrived at the scene, he found Electro there, absorbing power directly from the electrical lines. Electro immediately attacked Peter and blasted him backward. As Peter struggled to get up, Electro prepared to strike again, but suddenly Sandman appeared and saved Peter. Sandman demanded to know what was going on. Peter quickly explained that he was not the Spider-Man from Sandman's universe, and that he would explain everything later. Right now, he needed help stopping Electro. Sandman created a giant sandstorm and trapped Electro inside it, while Peter ripped the wires out of the nearby power poles. With his energy source gone, Electro's power began fading, and he was finally subdued. Peter then explained to both of them that this was not their universe. After that, he sent Sandman and Electro straight into the magical prison cells. He told Ned and MJ that Kurt Connors had once been one of the smartest scientists at Oscorp, but later, he transformed himself into the lizard and tried to turn the whole city into creatures like him. Confused and trapped, the villains asked where they were. MJ casually told them they were inside a magical basement. Meanwhile, Norman Osborn was shown wandering alone, deeply disturbed by the evil side of himself. Desperate and broken, he smashed the Green Goblin mask. After that, he made his way to Aunt May's shelter, hoping to find help. As soon as Peter learned Norman was there, he rushed over. Norman had come looking for the Spider-Man he knew, believing he would help him. But when he saw Peter, he was shocked to realize this was not the Spider-Man from his world. Norman sadly explained that he thought the Spider-Man he knew would save him, but Peter was someone else entirely. He admitted that sometimes he lost control of himself and became someone different, and he no longer understood what was happening to him. Aunt May began to feel that Norman was mentally broken. She then asked Peter if all of these villains were like this. Peter explained that every one of them had some kind of physical or mental condition that had turned them into dangerous monsters. May then told Peter that he should help them. Peter pushed back, saying this was not his responsibility. The best help they could receive was back in their own universes, where they belonged. According to him, sending them home was the only real option, but May gently reminded him that everyone deserved a second chance. Maybe if someone helped them now, they could change for the better later. Her words hit Peter deeply. Soon after, Aunt May drove Peter and Norman back to the New York sanctum. When Peter brought Norman inside, Dr. Octopus was stunned to see him alive. He looked at Norman and said, "You died." Peter was confused, not understanding any of it. Sandman then explained that both Dr. Octopus and Norman Osborn had died years ago fighting Spider-Man in their own universe. A moment later, Electro also remembered that he had died after being overloaded with massive electricity while fighting Spider-Man. Just then, Doctor Strange arrived and locked Norman inside another magical prison cell. Strange was carrying a mysterious box, so Peter asked what it was. Strange explained that it was an ancient device called the Machinea di Cadavus. Inside it was the corrupted spell Peter had ruined earlier. Once activated, it would reverse the broken spell and send every one of these visitors back to the universes they came from. But Peter immediately objected. He told Strange they could not send them back yet, because some of them would be sent back only to die. Dr. Strange looked at Peter and told him that this was their fate. Some people were meant to die, and no one could change that. Then he began activating the Machinea di Cadavus. But Peter refused to accept it. He suddenly grabbed the box and ran. Strange chased after him and used magic to attack, knocking Peter's astral form out of his body. Peter was shocked to see his own spirit floating in front of him, but even in that state, Strange still could not get the box away from him. Peter quickly snapped back into his body and ran again. Strange then dragged Peter into the mirror dimension. Inside that twisted world, Strange moved buildings and bent the city around him, using the environment itself to trap Peter. He finally caught him and took back the box. Then Strange opened a portal to leave, but Peter suddenly noticed that everything around him was built on geometric patterns. Using math and logic, he figured out the structure of the mirror dimension. He fired webs everywhere, trapping Strange inside a webbed matrix of endless shapes. Peter then stole Strange's sling ring and grabbed the box again before escaping back to the sanctum basement. He was thrilled that he had actually outsmarted Dr. Strange. Peter then handed Strange's sling ring to Ned Leeds for safekeeping. Dr. Octopus then asked Peter why he was trying to save them. Peter could have easily sent them back to die, so why didn't he? MJ replied that Peter was not that kind of person. Peter then told all of them that he believed he could save them. If he could cure them and turn them back into normal people, then when they returned to their own universes, everything might change. Maybe none of them would die fighting Spider-Man. With no better option, they agreed. Peter handed the Machinea di Cadavus to Ned and MJ and told them to protect it. If anything went wrong, he would send them a message, and they would activate the box immediately to end everything. MJ agreed, but warned Peter that none of these villains could be trusted. If she did not hear from him, she would activate the box herself. She made sure the villains heard that too, so none of them would try anything clever. After that, Ned and MJ left, while Peter took the villains to Happy Hogan's apartment. There, he showed them the powerful fabricator machine that could create almost anything, the same machine Peter had once used to build his upgraded suit. Peter decided to help Dr. Octopus first. With Norman Osborn assisting him, Peter began designing a replacement inhibitor chip. He explained that Octavius originally had a chip on the back of his neck that stopped the tentacles from controlling his mind, but the chip had been destroyed, which was why he had become violent and unstable. Peter finally completed the new chip and attached it to Octavius's neck. Instantly, Dr. Octopus calmed down. He told Peter that for the first time in a long time, he felt clear again. The strange voices in his head were gone. Overjoyed, Octavius even returned the Iron Spider nanotechnology he had taken earlier. Next, Peter created a device to cure Electro. It would absorb all of Electro's power and turn him back into a normal man. The machine began processing. Then Peter started making a serum to cure Norman Osborn. But just as he was about to finish, the evil side inside Norman awakened once again. Green Goblin had returned. Goblin began manipulating the others, telling them that their powers were not curses, they were gifts. Electro was quickly drawn in by those words. He grabbed the power device from the fabricator machine, charging himself with even more energy. Dr. Octopus tried to stop them, but Electro blasted him away. Then Electro began pulling electricity from across the city, growing stronger by the second. At the same time, Green Goblin viciously attacked Peter, beating him across the apartment. He mocked Peter and told him that his goodness was his greatest weakness. Seeing this, May Parker tried to stop Norman, but Goblin turned and slammed her with his glider. Then he dropped a pumpkin bomb and flew away. Peter barely managed to shield May from the blast. May had been badly injured by the glider strike, but she tried to hide it from Peter. Peter blamed himself for everything. He said all of this was happening because of him, and he should have listened to Doctor Strange and sent them all back. May gently told him he had done the right thing. Those men would have died in their own universes. He had chosen compassion, and that mattered. Then she looked at Peter and gave him the lesson that would define his life forever. With great power, there must also come great responsibility. Moments later, May began to collapse. Peter realized how badly she had been hurt. Panic filled his eyes as he tried to help her, but it was too late. Aunt May died in Peter's arms. Just then, the police arrived and surrounded the entire building. They believed Peter was responsible for all the destruction, so they opened fire on sight. With no other choice, Peter was forced to escape. Broken, exhausted, and drowning in grief, after losing Aunt May, he disappeared into the night. Meanwhile, Ned Leeds and MJ had gone to Ned's grandmother's house. They had seen everything on the news and were terrified for Peter. MJ was especially worried because Peter still had not shown up. Believing there was no time left, she decided to activate the box. But before she could, magic suddenly began flowing from Ned's hands. Since he was wearing Doctor Strange's sling ring, something inside him responded. Ned focused hard and said he wanted to find Peter. A glowing portal suddenly opened. On the other side stood Spider-Man, but not their Peter. They quickly realized this was another version of Spider-Man, the Spider-Man who had fought the Lizard and Electro in his own universe. Ned immediately understood that this Spider-Man had come from another reality. MJ, however, was not convinced. She told him to prove it by crawling on the wall. When he did exactly that, MJ finally believed him. She then turned to Ned and said he had brought the wrong Spider-Man. This was not their Peter, so Ned tried again. He focused the sling ring one more time and opened another portal. This time, another Spider-Man stepped through. It was the older Peter Parker from another universe, the one who had once faced Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus, and Sandman in his own world. The two Spider-Men stared at each other in disbelief. In that moment, even they realized the multiverse was truly real. Both of them then told Ned and MJ that their Peter Parker would need help. There was no way one Spider-Man could face that many monsters alone. They had to find him. Ned admitted they did not know where Peter was, but then MJ remembered something important. Whenever Peter felt sad or overwhelmed, he always went to the rooftop of Midtown School. So they all went there, and just as she expected, Peter was sitting alone on the rooftop, completely shattered after May's death. MJ gently told him they had brought someone to help. Then she called the other two Spider-Men forward. For the first time ever, all three Spider-Men stood face to face. Peter was overwhelmed with pain. He told them Aunt May had done nothing wrong, yet she died for no reason. Filled with anger, he said he would activate the Machina de Cadavus and send both Spider-Men along with their villains back to their own universes. What happened after that, whether those villains lived or died, no longer mattered to him. He began preparing to activate the box. But the amazing Spider-Man stepped forward and stopped him. He told Peter that he had once lost Gwen Stacy, the woman he loved, and he could not save her. That pain nearly destroyed him. But later, he chose to keep going and remain the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, because Gwen would have wanted him to keep helping people. Then the older Peter Parker spoke. He told him that a criminal once murdered his Uncle Ben. He wanted revenge more than anything, and he got it. But afterward, nothing changed. The pain remained. That was why they had to keep helping people, because that was who they were. Hearing them, Peter quietly remembered that even while injured, Aunt May kept saying they had done the right thing. The two Spider-Men then reminded him that May's sacrifice would mean nothing if he gave up now. What she wanted still mattered, and what she believed in had to live on through him. Those words finally reached Peter, so all three Spider-Men got to work. They began creating devices that could cure each villain and turn them back into normal people. In a short time, they finished making everything they needed. The Amazing Spider-Man then explained the next step. They needed to bring all the monsters to one place. Once the villains attacked, the three Spider-Men could cure them one by one and send them back home safely. As Peter loaded his web fluid, the older Spider-Man casually asked why he needed that. He then revealed that he could naturally shoot webs from his own wrists. Everyone stared at him in shock. Tom Holland's Peter then shared the final plan. They would gather everyone at Statue of Liberty, where the danger to civilians would be much lower. Using Ned's magic portals, all 3 Spider-Men arrived at the Statue of Liberty. Then Peter went live on camera and sent a message to the city. He admitted that the monsters were there because of his mistake. He said he could choose to destroy them, but Aunt May had taught him that everyone deserved a second chance. That was why he was giving them one. Then he invited every villain to come to the Statue of Liberty. Peter sent that message for one reason only: to lure them all there, so the 3 Spider-Men could cure them together once and for all. Then all of them waited at the Statue of Liberty for the villains to arrive. While waiting, the 3 Spider-Men finally had a chance to talk. Tom Holland's Peter asked the other 2 what kinds of crazy villains they had fought before. Both of them laughed and told him that he had already met most of them. Peter then casually replied that he had once fought an alien in space. That answer left the other 2 Spider-Men completely stunned. But before they could say more, all 3 suddenly sensed danger nearby. They immediately became alert. A moment later, Electro arrived in his new upgraded form. He demanded that Peter hand over the Macana de Cadavus so he could destroy it. Without warning, a massive battle began. Peter quickly handed the box to Ned Leeds and MJ for safety, but Ned still could not properly close the magic portal he had opened with the sling ring. At that exact moment, Sandman and Lizard also arrived and attacked the 3 Spider-Men. The fight became chaotic fast, and the heroes struggled to work together. So the 3 Spider-Men regrouped. The older 2 admitted they had never really been part of a team before, which was why fighting together felt awkward. Tom Holland's Peter then stepped up as the leader. He told them all to focus, work together, and take down one enemy at a time. With a clear plan, they moved together and trapped Sandman in a giant web net. After a tough struggle, they successfully used the cure on him. Sandman, Flint Marko, transformed back into a normal human again. Next, they tried to stop Electro, but because of the power he had stolen from the Fabricator device, he had become far stronger than before. The 3 Spider-Men could not hold him down. Meanwhile, Lizard noticed the open portal and rushed toward Ned and MJ. Seeing his friends in danger, Peter ran to protect them. That left the other 2 Spider-Men alone against Electro, who unleashed powerful blasts at them. But just in time, Dr. Octopus arrived to help. Because Peter had cured him, Octavius now fought on their side. He grabbed Electro and forced the cure device onto him. Seconds later, Max Dillon lost all of his power and returned to normal. At the same time, Tom Holland's Spider-Man caught Lizard and used the cure serum on him as well. Kurt Connors transformed back into himself once again. Meanwhile, Ned tried opening another portal to hide the box somewhere safe, but by accident, he opened a portal directly to Doctor Strange. Strange stepped through and immediately tried to activate the box. Ned stopped him and explained that Peter's plan was working. They were curing everyone. Strange paused, then agreed. He walked over to Peter and told him that now it was time to send them home. Strange began activating the box once more, but suddenly, Green Goblin attacked out of nowhere. He struck Strange, grabbed the box, and tried to escape with it. Dr. Octopus quickly caught Goblin and held him in place, allowing Strange to take the box back. But Goblin had secretly placed a pumpkin bomb inside it. The box exploded in Strange's hands. With that blast, the broken spell restarted. Reality began tearing open again. At the same time, MJ slipped and began falling from the Statue of Liberty. Peter rushed to save her, but before he could reach her, Green Goblin slammed into him and carried him away. Seeing this, the Amazing Spider-Man dived after MJ and caught her safely before she hit the ground. As he held her, he became deeply emotional, remembering the day he failed to save Gwen Stacy. This time, he had finally saved her. Meanwhile, Doctor Strange desperately tried to contain the spell again, but it had become too unstable. Cracks in the sky began opening everywhere, and figures from countless universes started trying to enter this world, all of them people who knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man. Using every bit of his strength, Strange struggled to hold the portals closed. Meanwhile, Tom Holland's Peter Parker was locked in a brutal fight with Green Goblin. Filled with rage, Peter attacked Goblin's glider and blasted it apart, sending both of them crashing to the ground below. At the same time, Ned nearly fell from the Statue of Liberty, but Doctor Strange's magical cloak swooped in and saved him just in time. Peter was consumed with anger. Everything that had happened, Aunt May's death, the chaos, the pain, had been caused by Goblin. Peter viciously beat him, then grabbed the broken glider and prepared to stab him with it. He was ready to kill him, but at the last second, the older Spider-Man stepped in and stopped him. Without saying a word, he held Peter back and reminded him what kind of hero he truly was. Even then, Goblin refused to surrender. He suddenly attacked and stabbed the older Spider-Man, badly injuring him. Seeing this, Peter made his final choice. Instead of revenge, he used the cure serum on Goblin. The the evil personality vanished, and Norman Osborn returned to normal. Horrified and ashamed, Norman deeply regretted everything he had done. Meanwhile, Doctor Strange was still desperately trying to close the cracks in the sky. Peter rushed to him, and Strange explained that people from countless other universes were still trying to enter. He could not hold them back much longer. They had waited too long. Peter then realized the truth. All of them were coming because they knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man. So he told Strange there was only one solution left: make everyone forget that Peter Parker existed as Spider-Man. If no one remembered who Peter Parker was, the spell would repair itself, and everyone would return to their own worlds. Strange warned him that it would work, but there was a terrible price. Everyone who knew Peter, his friends, his loved ones, the whole world would forget him completely. Peter would become a stranger to everyone. Even knowing that, Peter accepted it. Strange told him to say goodbye to the people he loved, because there was almost no time left. Peter first thanked the other two Spider-Men for helping him. Then he went to MJ and Ned Leeds. With tears in his eyes, he told them that soon they would forget who he was. But he promised he would find them again and make everything right. MJ desperately asked if there had to be another way. Peter quietly told her there wasn't. Then he promised one last time that he would come back for them. She tearfully accepted it. Doctor Strange then cast the spell again. One by one, everyone from the other universes began returning home. The cracks in the sky sealed shut, and reality was restored. Everything was finally fixed. But now, the entire world had forgotten who Peter Parker was. Later, Peter went to see Ned and MJ. They no longer remembered him at all. Still, MJ seemed to feel that something about him was strangely familiar. Peter was about to tell them everything, but when he noticed the wound on MJ's forehead, the scar she got because of everything he brought into her life, he stopped himself. He chose not to drag them back into danger. After that, Peter visited May Parker's grave, where Happy Hogan was also standing. But now, Happy saw Peter as nothing more than a stranger. Finally, Peter moved into a small new apartment and began building a brand new life for himself. While continuing his studies, he returned to protecting the city on his own once again.